Well, on our John Deere 1640 here, this little clamp here was what was missing. And as you know, I bought this tractor in pieces, so I tried to buy one of those through the week, but John Deere didn't have any. We had to send to America to get one if I wanted one. And I tried the local wreckers or dismantlers, and they didn't have one either. So I made one. I just had a little bit of stainless disc there, and so I've bent it. Usually they're pretty well straight, but I usually give them a bit of a twist with the pliers, and then when we bolt this up, that actually just holds a little bit of tension on this pipe here. Now, whether we need to do that, if you remember last time when we put this here pipe in, there was that much tension on it down the bottom here that we had trouble pushing it in. I had to get a bar down the bottom. So I nearly didn't bother with it. I thought it'll stay there anyway, but then I thought, well, I don't usually take shortcuts. So that's a little clamp. I'll tighten that up, and then we'll come back and we'll fit the high-low. Okay, I've got the floodlights in here, and it's not too bad. You can still see it's a dark little hole, but I've got that clamp that I made there. And now, if we take this high-low housing, make sure the thrust washer is on it, and we should be able to line this up. And get that just sitting up in there. Now that's a bit of a fiddle. It's a fiddle with the cameras and all in place. I'll just have a look and make sure I haven't bumped anything. Now, this pipe here for the PDO pack, we have to make sure we get that lined up, or else we'll be pulling it out and lining it up once more. So as we go in, we feel for that. That feels okay. Now there's also another pipe here on the four-wheel drive models only, and this pipe, there's an O-ring up in the housing here. We poke him up in there, and he comes around. Then down the bottom there's the four-wheel drive supply line, so it's just good, make sure you've got all that in place before you go further. And on the top of the high-low, where the lift cover goes, there's 4 pipes. I always like to take them off too. It just gives you a bit more clearance as you come in. So we're sitting up in there. I feel like I've got that sitting in a good spot on the pipe. No, it's just moved again. That feels better. So that pipe there is in. We're sitting up on the dowels. Now there's 9/16 spanner, fits the 3/8 UNC bolts that hold the high-low housing in. I normally don't do this up yet. We do have a bit of time to do that. That pipe, the four-wheel drive pipe that you can see me pointing to, but you can't really see it. I'll just that's the pipe. Actually, I'll give it a wipe now, have it out. But that pipe hooks onto this other one, and that goes down and supplies oil to the four-wheel drive engagement solenoid. So that can go down there. And look, the reason I don't do it up just yet is once I've done that up, that pipe sticks down the bottom so far, and if I move this or bump it sideways, I'll end up bending that pipe a little bit. So by leaving it up out of the way, just for the moment, there's less chance of damaging the bottom of that. Now, this bottom right has this tag on it. Now this tag, it helps hold the pipe work into place. So there's pipes to come in through the back here, and this little clamp, it actually holds them in place. So these pipes, one goes in, let's see if I can get these right while we're going. This one goes in there, and then that clamp stops that pipe from coming forward. Now if you don't put that in now, you won't get it in later. It's just a bastard of a thing to get in. And it goes on the bottom right, and its job is to hold against that pipe to stop the supply pipe here. It has an O-ring round there. It stops that from coming forward and disengaging. So you need to have that in. The other pipe that goes in here, it sits across like this. Up the top you have the two pipes, and now this plastic stuff here, they have it so the pipes don't rub together. It's a, I don't know, that loose bit up there, I might chop that off, save it getting caught. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it ever does much good, to tell you the truth, but those two pipes, if that one can sit there. But the main thing, main reason I'm telling you this is to remember this bolt here. That's your main interest. So I'll just nip that up now. I think I can see where I am. Nip that up. Nip these all up. 3/8 bolts usually go to about 35 foot-pound. So that's that bolted up. Now on the housing, on the gear housing, where it comes back here, we have sealing rings in here. Now they're on this shaft here. They're little hook rings. They're in good order on this. Up the end of this shaft there's a little brass spigot, and the little brass spigot helps with the lubrication oil. So what I do now, I'll get a bit of grease again, put a bit of grease there, and I always put it in this piece, so when we're going back into the gearbox, we only have this one spline to line up. When we come through here, if you're out of whack a little bit here, haven't got things lined up, this spline here can damage that ring surface. So we don't want that. So I'll just give this a bit of a wipe, make sure we're good. So I like to do it this way, and that way where we need things to seal, they seal. So there we are. We know we're in. We know we're right in nice and firm. Now, at this stage here, there's these 4 pipes. They come in from the top. Look down each one, make sure they're clean. Some of them have a restriction in the one over here for the PDO clutch pack. So we have to keep that in mind. And I must have dropped one. Poor video if I don't drop a part, really. Okay, so that part of the housing there, that's pretty good. Now there's a couple of things we can do now. I'll try and get the camera set up and I'll show you. We can get the air hose and we can do a bit of testing. Now's the time to test that we have everything everything working well and everything lined up, and this pipe back in and the clutch pack working and the HiLo working and all that. So I'll go and get set up for that and we'll do a quick test. Well, now we've got all the HiLo in and we have the main pipes all set up how we think it should be. Well, we have an opportunity now to do some air testing. So with air testing gives us the opportunity to test all the systems before. You can see me moving the microphone over here. But anyway, it gives us an opportunity to test all the systems before we have to put it together and find we have something wrong. So, and this is the first video where I've got two cameras. I've got one coming in here for the pipes and I've got one coming up the end, and we're going to try and get a bit of flashy editing going and see if we can see what happens as it happens. So first cab off the rank is the PDO clutch here. Now the pipe to the extreme right, if we put a bit of air down there, it actually blew it out. Okay, I'll hold it. Actually, I might get a fatter tip that's not so wobbly. And then we'll actually get a better, we'll be able to hold more pressure against it. So we'll just screw that in. We have adjustable ends here. So on the extreme right hand one, if we hold a bit of pressure down, we can turn the PDO. If I put air in there, I can't. Now you can hear a little bit of leakage there. That's the sealing rings, but my compressor's sitting on about 80, 90 pound at the moment, and you should have around 150 pound, 120 to 150 in your low circuit. So by popping, we can turn that. Just by popping a little bit of air there, look, there's not much, that shaft's locked. So that we know that's working fine. If we move along to the next pipe here, that's your PDO clutch pack. So what we're looking to do is being able to turn the shaft. When the PDO pack is engaged, it should lock up. So we'll try that. And see that shaft's locked. The only way we can turn that is because there's nothing on the clutch end. If there was nothing, if it was hooked to the tractor and the clutch was there, you wouldn't be able to turn that. So you can see this turn inside the hub. Then now we can't. Okay, the next one along is the HiLo, and that's the HiLo clutch setup. So we'll pop a little bit of air in there. Look, that's locked up. You can see a little bit of air leaking through here. Like, air will leak where oil won't, but we know that we can turn it with a little bit of air, nowhere near system pressure. We can't turn that anymore. And lastly, the one on the extreme left, if you don't have four-wheel drive, this is just blocked off, but we have four-wheel drive. I'll hold my finger over there. I've got the pipe loose actually, but that's just our lube pipe, and while the tractor's running, that will put that will put oil, permanent oil supply while the tractor's running down to the four-wheel drive engagement solenoid down the bottom. So now we can have a quick look. We're pretty well ready to put this on. Now the four-wheel drive clutch pack sits in here, and I find with the four-wheel drive clutch pack in there, I prefer to put it in later. I'd rather put the tractor together and slide that up in later. You can, without the bottom on it, it can get dislodged a little bit, so that's just what I prefer to do. We put the four-wheel drive shaft or the front-wheel drive shaft in the clutch pack. It sits in and runs off here, and I like to lift it up in later and make sure it's right, and I can still check everything. So we can't put the top on here yet, the valve shift cover. We're going to have a quick run through that and just make sure it's okay because it's been sitting for so long. But now we can have a quick look at how the system works. Now, the oil comes from the suction screen. It gets sucked up through this pipe here to the transmission pump. The transmission pump sends pressure oil down this line here to the transmission filter, past your filter bypass valve, which we looked at in an earlier video. Then once that's all good there, it comes back in here. Then it goes up this pipe here, and that's the oil supply to your top cover. And we can actually, and we will, when we get the tractor running, we can put a test pressure in here and just see how that's going and adjust it if we need to. So the oil coming up here gives us oil pressure for the PDO brake, the PDO clutch, the HiLo, the four-wheel drive clutch pack, and the lubrication circuit. Then once the top cover's finished with the oil, it comes back down this pipe here. That fella goes in the side there. She's got a bit of a bend on it, that I think, by the look of it. And it comes down this pipe here, out the side, and then the charge oil goes up to the front hydraulic pump. Because the hydraulic pump's a variable piston pump, it'll actually stroke and de-stroke on its own, but it can't actually suck oil up, so it needs a positive charge pressure. It doesn't matter whether it's 2 pound or 10 pound, it needs pressure. So any oil that's left over from here, it gets sent up to the front pump, and that then will run your steering and all that. There's a little bleed orifice in through the side here. That supply oil going to the front. There's a little orifice in your brake valve. That supplies oil to keep your brake master cylinder here full. I don't know if we need to look at that or not. I think I'll get it all going first and just see. And if we have to do that, we will. But there you go. That's fitting the HiLo and testing it. And this housing, once we put some quad rings in here and things like that, well, we can button him all up and put him back together. But anyway, we might move on now and move on to possibly the rear engine seal and get that bit done.